All right, so good night, everyone. We'll be doing tutorial one for Unit 1 Computer Science. Since most of us here haven't done the tutorial, I'll be just working through the solutions and then just explaining as we go along. All right, so for this session, I will be just working through the solutions to tutorial one that was posted already in the Discord group. And I will also answer any questions related to pseudocode and algorithms. So going through the solutions now. The first question was, using pseudocode, devise an algorithm for the question prompt that chooses the largest number among three integers that are inputted by the user. All right, so Samara, since you said you already started with module 2, can you help me answer this question? All right, so you don't necessarily have to talk. You can just type your answers in the chat. All right, so first you would have to accept the three integers. So prompt the user. All right, so we'll just have start and stop here to represent the beginning and the end of the program. So you would have to prompt the user. So what will be your prompt here? All right, so enter three integers. Right, so then what do you have next? All right, so you would read the integers or scan them in. All right, so up here, we'll just declare the variables first. So define, we'll just use A, B, and C as integer. So then here, we'll just put read A, B, and C. All right, so what would you put next? All right, so then we can start a conditional statement. All right, so which statements would, an if statement you mean? All right, so if and your conditions. All right, so if A is greater than B, and B is greater than C. Oh, okay, so I'll just put here, as you suggested, LG for largest integer. All right, so back to your conditional statement. What would you put inside this if statement? LG equals A, then else else if, okay, so else if C is greater than B and C is greater than A, LG equals C, and next, and then return the value. So what would happen if the largest value is B then? So we can put else LG equals B. This might get a bit small. All right, so and if, let me take this out so I can make this a bit larger. All right, so what would you put next? Then would print the result to the user. So then print LG. All right, so largest number equals LG. So that'll be your entire solution then. All right, so how I solved it was actually somewhat similar to yours. It's just that I did a for loop, which isn't really necessary here, but so I compared if A was greater than B and A was greater than C, then it would print A. And if B was greater than A and B was greater than C, then I printed B, and else I printed C. But Samaria's solution is right. so good job getting it right. All right, so next question. Using pseudocode, devise an algorithm that prints out numbers that are inputted after they are less than the number that comes before and after it. All right, and while I know that you haven't done module 2 yet, but are you willing to try? Okay, then. Um, Samara, are you willing to work this out again? Okay, so let me make this larger and then you can tell me how you would solve this. All right, so here you might have to use an array to store your numbers. So I'm not sure if they taught you arrays yet at school. I don't know if they did. Okay, so you've done strings and character arrays so far. All right, so I'll introduce you to integer arrays. All right, so I'll just declare the array here. So we can just go to here quickly. All right, so let's just declare num array as array from 1 to 5 of integer. All right, so here we would be storing at least 5 numbers into this array. So at array position 0, it would store 1 value and then going through until you get to position 4, which is going to be the 5th position, it will store in a number. So I'll just explain as I go along. All right, so after you have, well, I'll just go through the solution. All right, so after defining my limit and my counters, I declared the array right here. So this would then store from position 1 to the position that would be entered in here. So I would have prompted the user to enter a number here. So let me just edit this here. Print how many numbers do you want to enter? So it would then read in n, and then it will use the value that is inside of n to be the upper limit of this array. So this array will store it'll store n number of integers that are inside the array. So if I were to enter 10 here, it would store 10 numbers. So after asking the user to enter, let's say 10 numbers, I then initialize I to 0, and then using a for loop, allow them to enter in the numbers all the way to the limit. So using 10, if n equals to 10, then it will keep iterating 10 times. And then using this index here, index I will keep increasing by 1. So when it starts from 0, it'll then read into array position 0. And then when it goes around, it'll read into position 1, then 2, then 3, and then so on until we get to position 9, which is the 10th position. So after all the values have been inputted into this array, so now there are 10 values in here, we'll now go to this for loop here, where we will be testing the different values. So let me just put some brackets here to make it clearer. So inside this second for loop, I have a condition statement, which would then say if array position j starting from 1, which is the second position, is less than array position j minus 1, which at the moment would be array position 0, and it is also smaller than array position j plus 1, which would be array position 2, then it would print out whatever is within this array location. So going through it, when it is j equals 1, then, all right, so my apologies. I was not watching the time. So as you know, Zoom has a 40-minute time limit. So the meeting ended abruptly. So I'll just restart where I left off. So where j is equal to 1, we'll compare array position 1 if it is less than array position 0, and if it is also less than array position 2, which is the position after it, then it will print the number that is there. So when it increments to position 2, then it'll compare against position 1, and it'll compare against position 3. And if it is less than those two, then it will print out what is in array position 2. And then it will keep going until we get to position 9, which is the 10th position. And then it will terminate from there. It probably wasn't a good explanation, especially since it was cut into, but I hope you understand. So with the array, it would, instead of having, let's say, 10 separate variables, it will be one variable, but it will store 10 values. So using arrays, we can then use it to solve algorithms like these, where you would have to compare against different values that have to be inputted repeatedly, and also values that have to be inputted in sequence. So as the question suggested, numbers that are directly before and after it. So this is how I attempted to solve this algorithm using an array. I believe this is the last question that needs an array. So we can go on normally from here on. So Samara, you can have a try at this question now. Using pseudocode, devise an algorithm for each question prompt that takes a number as input and prints it if it is a prime number. All right, so how would you start this? Oh, so when we're gonna be figuring out if the number is a prime number or not, we're gonna have to test it against a certain condition. So yes. So you would probably then have to test to see if it can be divisible by any other number, and if it is, then it is a prime number. All right, so declare the variable as a, then prompt the user to enter a number, and then read a, What would you put next? All right, so if A minus, if A divided by A is 1, and A divided by 1 equals A, then what would you do? All right, take your time, take your time. All right, so I have to declare another variable B, and then B, if A divided by B is not an integer, then print the number is prime. Okay, so you're gonna ask the user to input another number, or are you gonna just have another number there? All right, so let's have B here. So then let's just say print, enter another number, and then read B. So then print another number except 1. All right, so then you would ask, so then I have a different condition here inside the if statement, and then ask, and then it would test if A can be divided by B. So if A divided by B equals hmm. Good night, Lisa.
Good night.
So we're currently working through tutorial 2 that was tutorial 1 that was posted in the group chat earlier this week. So we're just working through question number 3 right now.
Okay. My internet is moving a little slow, so just give me some time to load up.
Okay, no problem. All right, so if you're trying to figure out if A divided by B is not an integer, huh, I'm not sure how we would be able to test this here without a separate function. All right, so remember that we could also test if there is no remainder when you're trying to divide them. So you would have to use what is called the modulus function or the modulus operator, which looks like a percentage sign. So then that would then divide the numbers, and then if there is a remainder, then that would show that it does have a decimal point. But if it is equal to 0, if let's say A modulus B equals to 0, then that would show that it is completely divisible. So I guess here you can then, if A modulus B is not equal to 0, because then that would then have the same effect of saying if it's not a complete integer or not. Let's shrink this down. So what would you put inside this condition here? Print A is a prime number, and else print A is not a prime number. And and these two ifs here. And that is how you would answer this question. Also, my solution for the first question, I think is let's go back up to the first question. Met if A is greater than C. Okay. Yeah, that'll be right. Yeah. All right, that is what I have here in the answer. So if A is greater than B and C, then it will be the largest number, and same case would be for C, and if it isn't, then it would be. All right, no problem. At least you caught the answer. At least you caught what your issue was. All right, so let's go through what I had for the answer in question number 3. So let me just change my answer here a bit. But all right, so for my answer for this question, I just declared my counter variable, the number that I would be testing, and a flag, which is something you'll come to learn about in programming, which is essentially a variable that would be used to determine if it is true or false, that you can then use in a if or the arrow is essentially equals to a equal sign. It just means that the value on the right is being stored into the variable in the left. So it's pretty much just the equal sign. So here, yes, single equal sign. So in programming, single equal sign would be used for assignments, and double equals would be used for checking to see if it is if let's say A is equal to B. All right, so let's move on. All right, so going back to the idea of a flag, so I'll just explain it further when I get down here, but you can sometimes use it in an if statement to test if a condition is true or false. So if it is true, then you can store, let's say, 0 in it, and if otherwise, you can store 1 or vice versa, and then further down, you can then test that value and see whether, and then print out or run a certain set of code depending on that condition. So going into the solution, I asked the user to enter a number, and then I stored it in num. And then I made the limit of my for loop to be the square root of num, because when you get to the square root of the number you're trying to solve, then there would likely be no more divisors after it. So let's say the number we're testing is 36. square root of 36 would be 6. So after 6, there would be no more numbers that would be able to divide the number 36. So I'll be just using that number as my limit for my formula. So I initialize my counter to 2 so as to exclude number 1. I then started my for loop with I being my lower limit and with the value of 2, and then I put it to my upper limit, which is the square root of num. And then inside this for loop, I tested whether if the number can, when divided by I, is equals to 0, meaning if when that number is divided, it comes out without a remainder, meaning it's completely divisible, then I have my flag variable set to 0, which is false. So it'll be asking if the number is prime. If it's a prime number, then it would be set to 0, meaning that the the percentage sign would output the remainder, while the dash or the dividing sign would just divide the numbers. So after testing whether the number is divisible by I, if it is divisible, then it will store false in this variable 0, and otherwise it would store a 1. So then coming out this for loop, after it cycles through, I then ask if this variable up here is equals to 0. I then print it out if not, I printed out num is not a prime number, and otherwise else, meaning prime is prime is equals to 1 or any other value, then num is a prime number. Does everyone understand? Right, that's just Samara. We'll just hear from everyone else. If not, then we can just move on to question number 4. All right, so number 4, using pseudocode, devise an algorithm that takes 5 numbers as input and then finds the total and the average of those 5 numbers. So let me just get some more space here so I can write your solution. Julissa, did you do algorithms yet? Or which module?
Can you repeat, please?
Oh, I was just asking if you did pseudocode and algorithms yet in your class.
Yes,
Okay, so would you be willing to answer this question for me?
I can try.
All right, there's no problem in trying.
Okay, so start.
All right, start.
Declare num
num
as integer,
as integer,
declare average as float,
average as float,
and declare total as integer. You can just put it in the same line as num.
okay.
Can I do that?
Yes, you can
Okay.
do that.
Okay. So declare I as integer
Okay,
and initialize it to 0.
okay, so I'll put I up here
Yeah,
and then
initialize it to 0.
initialize to 0.
I can use a while loop here, correct?
Yes, you can use a while loop here.
Okay. So while
While
I equals 0, no, while I greater than 5, the
okay,
sign that opens to the right.
while I is greater than
The next one, sir, the less than sign.
oh, pardon me?
The other sign, the one that opens
Or
to the
the
right.
or I mean less than
5.
5.
Yeah. Print
Print
enter an integer.
enter integer.
Input num.
Input num.
Yes. It takes 5 numbers. Find 0 total. Okay. And while,
So and while
yeah, total is equal to um I
I
divided by 5.
divide by 5.
Uh-huh. Um and then no, that would be the average. I'm lost. I don't know what to do from here.
All right, do you want help?
Yes, I do.
All right, so up until this point, you were going good. All right, so you were using the while loop, going it up to 5, and then asking the user to input a number. But we still have to add the numbers together. So you should have total be have its have total's value be set in here to itself plus num. So here it would then, even though total is equal to 0 at the moment, it would keep adding in whatever was inputted into num. and would then store up its total. Understand? All right, so I'll let you finish from here on. Oh, do you find the average? All right, and War says average equals total divided by 5. That's right. And then after calculating our total and average, do you think we can print all these numbers from here?
Would you want to print the average and the total and the numbers entered? Well, they'll be printed already, but the average and the total?
Yes, please. So
Okay, it's print average is
average is,
whatever, and then outside the quotes you would have average. And the same for total. I think a comma is missing after the quotes.
right here.
Yeah.
All right, so print then. So you would then have here total is comma total.
Yeah.
All right, so then we can end the program. Can we initialize total from the beginning? Yes, we can. All right, so total equals 0. All right, so this solution is good. It is almost identical to the one that I did. It's just that I did a for loop instead. But there is a small problem in here. So when using a while loop, the I doesn't automatically increment like in a for loop. So after here, you would have to say I is equal to I plus 1 so that I increases in value so that when we actually get to 5, we would then leave the loop. Because otherwise it would keep reading I at 0 and then we'll keep asking the user to keep inputting the values.
So could you say I plus plus as well?
Now here, I would just be equal sign, would be just one equals because we're assigning. So this, the arrow and the equal sign in pseudocode are interchangeable. And
Okay,
what's
so
the
why do you use
oh,
I plus plus?
I plus plus?
Yeah.
I think we can use I plus plus, but I'm just using this since it is pseudocode because if I remember correctly, I plus plus is mainly used in actual programming languages. I'm not too sure if it is pseudocode, if it's allowed in pseudocode. So just to be safe, I'll use I equals I plus one, which is pretty much the same thing. It'll increment the values as well, but I plus plus is just a shortcut for it. So I'll just compare my answer here, which is pretty much the same thing. I declared a total variable, a num variable as integer, and an average variable as float. I then asked the user to enter 5 numbers, and then setting I equals to 0, I should have put I up here. I then used a for loop, which would then increment from 1 to 5. It would then read in the numbers. So I put the prompt outside the loop so that it wouldn't keep repeating the prompt every time it asks the user to input a number. So I just have the reading in part inside the loop. So when it executes, it will just keep opening num for new input. So then after that, I have total be equals to total plus num. So that would then store the value of num in total and then add it to what is already in total, thus adding the number. Okay, so we had another time disruption, but we'll just start back off where we cut out. So after it reads in num, it would then add num to the total and will keep adding on as num receives new input. So it'll keep adding on to the total. And then down here, I just had the incrementer. It isn't necessary with a for loop, but I added it because I was a bit uncertain of whether it would be. All right, Samara had a question. What if I were to just declare A, B, C, and then print 5 and I mean, that can work as well, but a loop would be the more efficient way of, yeah, as Jaleesa said, a loop would be the more efficient way of inputting the numbers because you wouldn't have to put a bunch of variables to keep storing in the values. You can just have one variable and just keep storing in new input as it comes along. Right, so continuing on, so after with this incrementer, which I think is already included in the for loop, I would then come and calculate the average, which would be total divided by 5. And then down here, I printed the total and the average, and then the program would end. All right, so everyone understands that, right? All right, cool. So let's move on to the next question and the last question. So using pseudocode, devise an algorithm for the question prompt in which you have to calculate a running sum of numbers that the user will enter, and that will be added to the sum. But when a negative number is encountered, it will stop adding the numbers and print the final result. All right, so who wants to answer this question? All right, so since Julissa did the last one, do you want to solve this one, Samara? All right, cool. So just tell me what to type. All right, so declare A and sum. A sum as integer. All right, so what would you put next? All right, so for A equals 1, and you're going to be using a for loop. Or cut, well, a for loop doesn't really take in conditions. All a for loop does is really just go from one limit to another limit. If you want to have a loop based on a condition, you'll have to use a while loop, and that is no problem, Anwar. You can leave. Have a good night. Yes, I will share the PowerPoint in the um Discord group, and I'll also post this video on the YouTube channel. All right, so no problem, Anwar. All right, so while a equals 1 and while a equals a plus 1. Oh, oh, that's why you were trying to, oh, you were trying to declare a equals 1 and then increment it. Okay, so I understand what you're trying to do. So we can just keep doing the for loop, but put the condition on the outside. So we just initiate a equals to 1. And then since this incrementer is already inside the for loop, we can just use a as our lower limit and then have a2 and then another number as our upper limit. So what would you put for your upper limit? If a plus 1 was the upper limit, then it would only run once. All right, let's look carefully at the question, like, well, 999. All right, so let's just look carefully at the question. All right, so it says that it will keep running until a negative number is encountered. So it would then stop and then print the final result. So here it wants an indefinite loop. It'll keep repeating, but if it hits a condition, then it would exit that loop. What loop does that sound like? Yeah, so you can't use a for loop because it's a running song and you're gonna have to break out the program eventually. But it can also run forever. So what other loop would you use here? Yes, you'll have to use a while loop. So we'll just switch this to while. And then since it says that it would break out of the loop when a is a negative number, then we can have it as when a is less than 0. Right, cool. So that would be our condition. So while a is less than 0, Oh yeah. Oh yeah, so it'll oh yeah, so we can just put while it is greater than 0. So all right, so it'll keep running while it is greater than 0. So all right, so what would you put inside the while loop? Print enter number, enter number. Read a all right, so sum equals to sum plus a. All right, so we'll just initialize sum as 0 up here, right? All right, so coming back down here, sum would be equal to sum plus a. Then what would you do next? All right, so you would end the while loop or keep it inside the while loop. All right, so end the loop first and then print sum equals sum. All right, so end while and then print sum equals sum. Let's write this down. So that'll be your solution to the answer. That'll be your solution to the question, sorry. All right, so I did something similar here. In fact, we pretty much did the same thing. So I forgot to declare total up here, but we pretty much did the same thing. It's just that I did a do while or a repeat loop, which would run the loop first and then test the condition afterwards. So the difference between a while loop and a do while or repeat loop is that the latter would run first and then test the condition. So it will then repeat, while a regular while loop would just test the condition head on and then just skip to the end. So here we pretty much did the same thing. So congrats on getting the answer right. Lastly, we did nearly the same thing, so that's great. So this is all of the questions that we have. So do you have any other questions or comments, Samara? All right, so since there aren't any more questions, I think we can end class here. So good night, everyone. Good night to you too, and thank you.